Hello everyone, and welcome to Virginia International University's MBA 536 Labor Relations class. We're going to continue our discussion tonight in this chapter, chapter 8, talking about the cost of benefits. This chapter is laid out so that it talks about required benefits, and those essentially are the ones that are required by law and not negotiated. We'll talk about negotiated benefits. We'll talk about certain types of benefit plans, such as income maintenance plans. We'll talk about health care, pay for time not worked, premium pay, employee services, and then we'll touch again, as we usually have in prior chapters, on the public sector benefits. And so when we're talking about required benefits, we're really talking about federal and state dictated types of insurance coverages. So for instance, there's a federal and state unemployment insurance, and that program is designed to provide compensation for those employees who have been laid off from employment. And so essentially, if you work and you get laid off through no fault of your own, you're able to, or you're eligible for unemployment insurance. And there are certain caveats that go along with getting that insurance and or collecting on that insurance. And there are certain limits as to the amount that you can draw. There are limits as to the length of time, and throughout the entire process that you're drawing, you have to stay in contact with the agency and show them that you're actively engaged and searching for work. And so this is just meant to be a temporary bridge to help people get beyond or in between jobs. Then we talk about Social Security. Well, that obviously is a statutory benefit as well. Currently, the rate is 7.65%. And that's divided between old age survivors' income and in Medicare. And it's meant to provide for retirement income. So based on how much you've contributed over the period that you've worked, it sets an amount that you would be entitled to. It provides for survivor benefits. So if something happens to you, your survivors, there's a social plan in place to help take care of them until they reach an adult age. And then we talk about Medicare benefits, which are really for the elderly or disabled, and it's intended to provide a reasonable level of health care. And again, Social Security, so the employee pays 7.65% of their salary, and the employer pays 7.65%. And then we talk about this idea of state workers' compensation. And so laws that are requiring workers' compensation were enacted by states to protect employees and families against permanent loss of income and high medical bills because of accidental injury or illness on the job. The primary purpose of most state laws is to keep the question of cause of the accident out of the courts. The laws ensure employees' payment for medical expenses or lost income. Workers' compensation primarily consists of employer contributions into a statewide fund. And so essentially what workers' compensation does is to create a contract between the employee and the employer that if an employee gets hurt on the job, they are statutorily entitled to lost wages. And generally these are a certain percentage of wages, and again, they may be for a certain period of time, although if a person becomes totally disabled due to a work-related injury, they're able to draw a disability for the rest of their life, or this workers' compensation disability for the rest of their lives. And these laws, obviously, this is administered at the state level, so there are subtle nuances in these laws across the various states. And so this is Table 8-1, dealing with benefit issues on page 288 to 289 of the text. And it gives us some good illustrations of required benefits versus negotiated benefits. And as we said, we talked about some types of required benefits, such as Social Security, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation. These are things that are set by law, they're statutorily required, and the benefit itself is fixed. So it's something that is not negotiated, versus those that are, such as income maintenance plan, and those include items like pensions, wage employment guarantees, severance pay, other items like employee health care, and pay for time not worked. And this goes on to the next page. where we also talk about certain negotiated benefits such as premium pay. So that's pay in excess of perhaps a certain number of hours, pay outside the standard normal hours such as shift differentials, call-in pay or on-call pay for being available to be at work when called, and so on. And then employee services such as flexible benefit plans, childcare, credit unions, and educational assistance. And so all of these types of benefits are a part of what a union can negotiate, or union and management can negotiate as part of a collective bargaining agreement. So when we talk about a pension plan, we're really talking about a guaranteed payment to a former employee during retirement. The pension plan actually began in the United States after the Civil War, when former Union Army soldiers were given payments for their service. Then a few companies began offering pensions as a new benefit. One of the first private pension plans was offered by Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, Ohio, to employees in its soap plants. Unions began negotiating pension benefits during World War II, when a national wage freeze made it impossible to negotiate higher hourly wages, and pension plans gradually became a common benefit in the workplace. There are two different types of traditional pension plans. One is this defined benefit plan, and that really is a retirement plan that provides a stipulated fixed amount of income, usually paid monthly. The exact amount is determined by a benefit formula and is based on years of service and base pay. The second traditional type is a defined contribution plan, which is less common in labor contracts but far more common in union employers. Under these plans, less common in labor contracts and more common in non-union employers. Under these plans, the employer makes a specified dollar contribution to an account in a managed fund, and the retirement benefit depends upon the investment gains or losses in the plan. And then there are these two additional forms of pension plans. One is a tax-deferred 401k plan, and this really began as an alternative to a company-provided pension plan, where the employee has much more ownership of their retirement provisions. And essentially in a 401k plan, what an employee does is to make pre-tax contributions to a fund. So they're not taxed on these contributions, and then as these contributions earn over the life of the plan, or over the life of the employees working and making contributions, the earnings are not taxed. And so they aren't taxed until they begin to withdraw. And again, these tax-deferred 401k plans really are the predominant type of plan now. And then there are cash balance plans. And these cash balance plans are the newest and fastest growing type of retirement plans, found in 10% of the collective bargaining contracts. Under these plans, which are often designed to supplement a defined benefit plan, the employer contributes a fixed portion of the worker's income to a hypothetical account and guarantees it will grow at a fixed rate. Thus, the benefit grows more quickly than the traditional defined benefit plan and provides a more predictable benefit payment. And so an employee stock ownership plan, or ESOP, provides a unique alternative to a company in financial trouble or in need of improved employer-employee relations. And ESOPs can act as a kind of retirement benefit plan. And so in 1974, Congress passed the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, or ERISA, also known as the Pension Reform Act. The law was passed in response to alleged abuses and incompetence in some private pension plans. ERISA provided a sweeping reform of pension and benefit rules. And there are several areas that the law primarily affects. And one of those is that employers are required under ERISA to count toward vesting all services from age 18 and to count toward earned benefits all earnings from the age of 21. Prior to that, the vesting began at age 22 and toward earnings at age 25. Additionally, employers must choose from among 3 minimum vesting standards. Each year, employers must file reports of their pension plans with the U.S. Secretary of Labor for approval. The Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, or PBGC, was established within the Department of Labor to encourage voluntary employee pension continuance when changing employees or employment. This was accomplished by providing portability, or the right of an employee to transfer tax-free pension benefits from one employer to another. The PBGC also assures the pension plans from employers with underfunded plans and financial difficulties. And so here we talked about the PBGC. And we note that it encourages voluntary employee pension continuance when changing employment by providing portability. And this idea of portability, again, is that an employee can transfer the funds in their pension plan from one employer to another in the event that they change employment. And so there are a couple of sort of standard issues in pension negotiations. The first one of these we'll talk about is referred to as vesting. And vesting is the process by which an employee accrues non-forfeitable rights over employer contributions that are made to the employee's qualified retirement plan. Generally, these non-forfeitable rights accrue based on the number of years of service performed by the employee. And essentially all we're saying there is that if I become employed at a company that has a pension plan, the CBA, or collective bargaining agreement, will say how long do I need to be there in order for me to vest in my employer's contributions. I'm 100% vested in my own contributions because they're my contributions out of my pocket. But the employer may also have some form of matching or some sort of profit sharing or some other type of contribution to the plan. And it may be that I could vest from day one. It may be that I have to be there 3 years before I fully vest, or there may be some prorated vesting across multiple years of service. But that is one of the points that is negotiated in a CBA. Then we talk about a qualified plan. So a qualified plan generally refers to a plan that meets standards set by the Internal Revenue Service. By qualifying under the IRS provisions, an employer can deduct pension contributions made to the qualified plan as a business expense for tax purposes. Of course, that's a major reason why employers seek to qualify their pension plans whenever possible. Employees, however, also benefit because they don't pay any tax dollars. Either they or the employer invest in the plan under current income. Instead, income taxes are paid when the retirement benefits are received. A non-qualified plan would not provide the tax advantages of the qualified plan, but would be required to meet the strict guidelines set by the IRS. Then we talk in terms of contributory plans. All plans, or either pension plans, are either contributory or non-contributory. In a contributory plan, the employer pays a portion of the funding, and the employee pays the other portion. The percentage paid by employer and employee is of interest, obviously, during collective bargaining. In a non-contributory plan, the employer pays all of the administrative and funding costs. Therefore, the question of how much is to be paid by the employer does not arise during collective bargaining. Rather, the benefit package provided by the plan becomes the central issue. And then we talk about age or amount of service determines eligibility. So most pension plans require a minimum age or years of service before an employee becomes eligible to receive retirement benefits. The plan may simply require a minimum age, such as 55 or 60, at which time the retired employee begins receiving benefits, or perhaps a minimum of 25 or 30 years of service. Other plans may require a minimum of both, such as 25 and 60, meaning 25 years of service and 60 years of age. And so another issue that comes up is this idea of disqualification. ERISA allows a pension plan to suspend pension payments of a retired member who re-enters the job market to protect participants against their pension plan being used in effect to subsidize low-wage workers who hire planned retirees to compete with and undercut the wages and working conditions of employees covered by the plan. And then we talk about a buyout. And so employers wishing to downsize the number of union workers or replace some high-paid workers with newly hired lower-tiered workers may negotiate in an early retirement provision with the union. For example, in 2006, a General Motors buyout offer led to a reduction of 34,000 union workers who received a bonus of between $39,000 and $140,000 in addition to their normal pensions. Because such plans are usually voluntary and help keep the employer competitive, unions may not oppose their implementation but will want to negotiate the exact terms of the program. So perhaps the most important pension item in a defined benefit plan is the benefit formula, in which benefits due each retiree are calculated. And here we see a common benefit plan where the benefit dollars, that is what is received by the employee or paid out by the plan, is equal to the years of service times the base pay times a certain percentage. The percentage is a fixed figure that is seldom negotiated, and then the base pay is definitely a critical negotiating issue. So because what do we define base pay as? Is it the average of the top 5 years earning, the average of the top 3 years earnings? Is it the highest year that the employee worked? And so this is why the base pay definition becomes critical and is an important negotiating issue. So wage employment guarantees ensure employees a minimum amount of work or compensation during a certain period of time, usually for the life of the contract. Normally, all full-time employees who have at least 1 year of experience are eligible. When negotiating to provide a guaranteed annual wage, management often will insist on an escape clause which suspends the guarantee for production delays beyond the control of management, such as natural or accidental disasters, voluntary absences, employee discharge, or strikes. So these subs or supplemental union benefits plans became popular in the 50s when steel and automobile industry union leaders began to negotiate these terms and conditions. These plans provide additional income to supplement state unemployment benefits to employees who are laid off. Union negotiators normally contend that state unemployment benefits do not enable employees to maintain adequately their style of living. So these sub-plans are designed to be directly supplemental. Employees receive a certain percentage of their gross pay for a maximum number of weeks when unemployed. And so, for example, if an employee subjected to a layoff during the period of the contract receives 75% of normal base pay, when the company providing the additional funds necessary to the employee's state unemployment benefits, an employee making about $532 a week would receive a total of $400. This 75% figure would include $300 per week of the state unemployment benefits, with the remaining $100 provided by the company. And as we see, management usually strongly opposes implementing a sub-plan. Management negotiators emphasize that the company already pays into a state unemployment fund as required by law, and that union leaders should lobby their state legislature to increase those funds and not to put that responsibility on the back of the organization. Management also argues that additional unemployment benefits decrease its ability to make technological changes and to provide new equipment and processes because of the additional benefits paid to the displaced workers. And so severance pay, which is sometimes called dismissal pay, is income provided to employees who have been permanently terminated from the job through no fault of their own. Although similar to a sub in its appearance and formula for provision of determining benefits, severance pay is given under quite different circumstances. Sub-pay enables the employee who is temporarily laid off to feel minimum impact from the layoff and anticipates a return to work in full pay. An employee who receives severance pay, however, realizes that they have no hope for future work with the company. It's normally provided to employees who are terminated for just cause or who quit. And so union leaders have also strongly negotiated for death and disability benefits to supplement Social Security. The negotiated benefit may provide for coverage up to a maximum, or it may provide benefits independent of others received by the employee. The need for negotiators to be very specific about what is provided is important. So employee health benefits today are the issue for many employees, unions, and employers. Double-digit annual cost increases and premium hikes over the last 20 years have caused health care to become a most common issue behind union-called strikes in recent years. Both unions and employers are concerned over the annual cost of employee health care. When we're talking about health care, it's a broad subject, right? It's a broad topic and it includes a lot of subtopics. And so this here is a listing of the subtopics that are negotiated under the healthcare umbrella to include benefit coverage, deductibles, monthly premiums, co-payments, and then the choice of a healthcare provider. And so the types of healthcare providers or healthcare insurance plans generally offered are these preferred provider organizations, or PPOs, and they're available to 74% of union workers today. A PPO is essentially a contract among the employer, insurance carriers, hospitals, and healthcare providers, dentists, and physicians that provide specific services at a discount in exchange for a guaranteed number of patients. Then there's this health maintenance organizations, or HMOs, and they're available to 62% of union workers. An HMO is a medical facility that provides routine checkups, shots, and treatments, as well as maternity care, vision testing, and so on, usually at a lower total annual cost to families than a typical insurance plan, and that requires a monthly charge per family. And then finally, we talk about these traditional fee-for-service or indemnity plans, and they are available to 48% of union workers. And those are essentially plans that say you can go to any doctor, any hospital, any healthcare provider of your choosing, and generally the plan will provide for some level of coverage, although that level of coverage is generally much more shared between the employer and employee under these traditional fee-for-service plans. And so controlling healthcare cost increases is a major negotiation issue, sometimes resulting in difficult choices for both unions and workers. The single most important healthcare issue being negotiated is usually what portion of the total cost the employer will pay and what portion the employees pay. For employers, the issue of healthcare cost containment is critical because if costs are allowed to increase, they can quickly rise faster than any other personnel cost. Obviously, for employees, it's also critical since rising costs, rising healthcare costs, the risk of some catastrophic loss could easily wipe out an employee's entire life savings. And so this is again, we note that this is the single most important healthcare issue, this idea of who pays for how much of the coverage offered. And so here we see some options available in negotiation to help share costs with employees, and they include things like co-payments. So, the employer may agree to pay 80% of any covered treatment, and the employee has to pick up the other 20%. Up to a certain limit, and then perhaps the employee is covered 100%. And we talk about deductibles. So there again, an employee may have a $2,000 a year deductible or an $800 a year deductible, and that says that once they've met all of these out-of-pocket costs, then whatever those out-of-pocket costs are determined by the plan provisions, once they've met those, the maximum deductible, they have no more out-of-pocket costs. And then monthly premium contributions, whereby an employee and employer share, and generally through payroll deductions, the employee pays for a certain percentage of the cost of their health care. And so a relatively new method of cost containment that is likely to be supported by both management and union negotiators is called behavior modification. And it's a term that's been around in psychology for many years, but now it's being applied to healthcare. Behavior modifications program generally include cash incentives given to workers when they complete such, for example, activities like routine health risk assessments, smoking cessation programs, weight reduction routines, and exercise regimes. Studies indicate that cash incentives above $200 do positively modify workers' behaviors over a long period of time and thus produce happier, healthier employees and save employers' costs. We also see this idea of a Voluntary Employee Beneficiary Association, or VEBA, which is under U.S. Internal Revenue Code, is an organization created for the purpose to pay life, sick, accident, and similar benefits to members or their dependents and beneficiaries. The members must have an employment-related common bond, such as an employer or affiliated employers, coverage under one or more collective bargaining agreements, or a membership in a labor union. And so we talked some about this idea of wellness programs where the employer tries to incentivize employees to lead a healthier life, including exercise programs, weight control, stress management, smoking cessation, and physical exams. Most are expanded physical fitness or alcohol and drug rehabilitation programs, but many complete wellness programs include stress, high blood pressure detection, cancer detection and treatment, and individualized exercise programs. And I know my employer has a wellness program which is administered online by employees, and in fact, if employees don't meet certain levels of like silver level or platinum level, then they get assessed an additional premium per se. And we also have provisions whereby if an employee smokes, and this is self-certified, but if an employee says that they smoke, they get assessed a certain additional premium each month because they smoke. And there's a lot of sensitivity around this because, you know, a lot of people would say, well, why is smoking, someone who smokes assessed an additional premium, but yet someone who's overweight and doesn't exercise, who may be at even a higher risk category, is not assessed this additional premium. And so there is a lot of sensitivity around this. And then there are also these ideas of employee assistance programs, or EAPs, and these include provisions which allow an employer to offer assistance to employees who may be dealing with issues such as alcoholism, drug abuse, marital difficulties, financial problems, emotional problems, or legal problems. The number has increased because many labor relations managers believe that they can save money by helping employees resolve personal problems that affect job performance. EAPs also provide the union with evidence of management's concern for employees' well-being, which should be a strong boost to employee relations. However, the primary reason for more company-sponsored EAPs is that they may enhance a company's profitability by reducing absenteeism, turnover, tardiness, accidents, and medical claims. And so now let's talk about a federal law titled the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, or COBRA, which was passed in 1986. This is a law that provides for the continuation of medical and dental insurance for employees, spouses, and dependents in the event of the employee's death, termination, divorce, or other loss of health care eligibility. An employee or employee's dependents must elect this coverage and pay 100% of the full cost of the plan selected. The intent of this law is to alleviate gaps in health care coverage by allowing the employee or beneficiary to continue medical or dental insurance for up to 18 or 36 months, depending on the circumstances of their employment separation. The passage of the act was a major victory for unions, which had been seldom able to obtain similar provisions from employers at the bargaining table. And so essentially what this says is that if I'm an employee at a company and suppose I have a family medical plan that covers myself and my spouse and 5 kids, and I pay $800 a month, or the plan costs $800 a month, but I pay half and my employer pays half. And then suppose I get laid off. Well, under COBRA, if I get laid off, I'm legally entitled to elect to continue that coverage, that same level of coverage with the same benefits for 18 to 36 months, depending on the situation. And the only difference is that now I have to pay the full $800. My employer doesn't pay any of it. But I have a plan that I can elect to take that gets me medical coverage, which could become very important if I have 3 infants or 3 toddlers, I have a wife who has, or myself, who may have a pre-existing condition which might make it virtually impossible to get other insurance, or even if I could get it, it might be much more expensive than what I'm paying under this COBRA sponsored plan. So this is a very important provision as well. Then we talk about pay for time not worked, and this has become one of the most sought after employee benefits by union members. Employees today have come to expect to be paid for holidays and vacations as well as many other absences. Time off without pay components of labor agreements are many and varied and could include all of these: holidays, vacations, jury duty, civic duty, military duty, funeral leave, marriage leave, sick leave, wellness leave where no sick leave is used, blood donation time, grievance and contract negotiations, and then lunch, rest, and break periods, or personal leave. And so here we just see a few of those items we just talked about continue to be listed. More than 99% of labor agreements provide for paid holidays. Union negotiators' demand for increased paid holiday has been great and continues to increase the average number of paid holidays provided by the agreements. So we can see the difference here in that in 1950, the average number of paid holidays in labor agreements was 3. Now, almost 60 years later, the average is closer to 11. However, the average number in agreements has remained steady at about 11 from 1986 to 2008. Most contracts provide for between 8 and 13 paid holidays. And we see that some of the best practices here and that provisions in the labor agreement should specify eligibility, right? So do I have to be at a company for any particular length of time before I'm eligible to take paid holiday? The paid holiday, if I work a flex schedule, does the paid holiday have to fall on a on a day that I'm working? What is the holiday rate? So is it straight time or something else? Which days are paid holidays? Actually, which days on the calendar are paid holidays? And what happens when holidays fall on non-work days, like on a Saturday or a Sunday? And so these are the labor agreements should specify specifically what happens under these particular circumstances with respect to paid holidays. Then we talk also about paid vacation. The expectation of a paid vacation is really very common now. About 86% of labor contracts in 2005 provided for paid vacations of 2 to 6 weeks duration. Employers believe that unlike paid holidays, paid vacations are effective in increasing employee productivity. Employees, by taking a physical and mental break from the workplace, are able to return to work refreshed and rejuvenated. And so here we see 4 types of vacation plans which are commonly negotiated: the graduated plan, the uniform plan, the ratio to work plan, and the funded plan. By far the most popular type is the graduated plan, which provides an increase in the number of weeks of vacation according to the length of time that or the length of service that an employee has. The uniform vacation plan provides all employees with the same length of vacation. It's most commonly found in manufacturing firms that really shut the plant down for specified periods to retool or change product lines. The ratio to work plan, which is commonly found in the printing and transportation industry, relates the length of vacation to the number of hours or days the employee works during a given time period, usually the year preceding the allocation of vacation. And then finally, the funded plan requires employers to contribute to a vacation fund from which employees may draw vacation pay during periods when no work is available. And we normally see this in industries such as the construction and apparel industry. And so again, we want to be very careful there. Agreement specifies eligibility requirements and the duration of vacation leave, regardless of which type of vacation plan is negotiated. Sick leave is often accrued by employees at a specific rate, such as 1 day per month from the first day of permanent employment. It's the subject of many arbitration cases. Sick leave is intended to provide for continuation of employment when employees are physically unable to report for work. To minimize grievances and other problems associated with sick leave provisions, the labor agreements should specify the procedure for taking sick leave, the time sick leave must be reported by during the beginning of the work shift, and what verification by a physician or other employee individuals is required, a definition of sick, and the accumulation right. Some contractors or contracts provide that unused sick leave can be accumulated without any maximum to cover employees who require extended sick leave for serious illnesses. A doctor's certification is usually needed only when an employee uses extended sick leave. Many contracts also specify an amount or a maximum number of days of sick leave that can be accumulated by an employee. Most agreements provide for paid leaves of absence for a variety of other purposes, including military service, education, and union business, as well as personal reasons. Personal leave may result from a variety of causes, such as jury duty, appearing as a witness in a court case, or attending a family funeral. Personal leave may also include the awarding of personal days that employees may take without specifying why they missed work or giving advance notice. And again, we see it's important when we're negotiating the CBA that we specify the eligibility requirements around when employees become eligible to or eligible for the use of paid leaves of absence, and the payment received. So is it full pay? Is it partial pay? How long is it? And then also scheduling considerations. So how far in advance or what type of notice is required of the employee so that management can plan for when an employee wants to take a paid leave. And so virtually all labor agreements provide a specified work schedule and require premium pay for any hours worked beyond the normal schedule. More than 67% of labor agreements provide for premium pay for Saturday and Sundays that are not a part of the normal scheduled work week, and 99% provides for specified overtime premium pay on either a weekly or a daily basis. Overtime premiums are often provided on a daily basis for time over 8 hours. Such additional pay was termed penalty pay in the past because it was intended to discourage employers from requiring employees to work additional hours or weekends. Today, employers are anxious to maintain their rights in scheduling additional hours so that overtime costs and premium payments can be minimized. The pyramiding of overtime pay is prohibited in most contracts. Pyramiding is the payment of overtime on overtime, which can occur if the same hours of work qualify for both daily and weekly overtime payment. In contracts that prohibit pyramiding, provisions specifying how such hours will be paid are usually included. How overtime work is distributed among employees is also discussed in most labor contracts. The most common provision is a general statement to the effect that overtime will be distributed equally as far as practical. Premium pay for other undesirable work situations may also be negotiated. Shift premiums are negotiated additional hourly rates of pay provided to employees who work the least desirable hours. Usually specified in cents per hour in the labor agreement, the cost of the increase in a shift differential would be calculated similarly to that of an overtime premium pay increase. More than 90% of all late shift factory workers receive a shift differential premium over their day shift counterparts. There was a significant 2007 research study of mostly nurses and airline crews that found that higher rates of breast cancer and prostate cancer among women and men whose shift started after dark. And so there are some studies that unions can take advantage of in negotiations that point to at least some correlation between undesirable causes and these are undesirable effects and these undesirable or less desirable hours. And so there are a few other types of premium pay that are available that we really don't see as much of in practice. However, one of these is a bilingual language skill, and this pay being paid or having a new premium pay provision for bilingual language skills was one of the first in U.S. collective bargaining agreements. Other employers agreeing to pay a bilingual premium pay may include Delta Airlines to flight attendants and MCI, which pays a 10% bonus to workers who are required to speak a second language more than half of the time. In general, most unions are pressing for a new bilingual premium if the skill is needed a substantial percentage of the time in job-related communication. And then there's travel pay. And so in industries that require workers to travel regularly to different job sites, a premium is paid for excessive travel. The construction industry may provide, for example, a specified home office and a free zone of several miles from that office in which workers will travel to sites for free. Beyond that zone, they receive a premium for the travel time. And so a wide variety of employee services have been negotiated in labor agreements. In general, they are not as commonly found as the previously discussed employee benefits. However, most labor agreements provide for at least a few employee services. Some of the more traditional employee services include sponsoring social and recreational activities, subsidized food services, company-sponsored credit unions, free or subsidized homes computers, legal services, and elder care. And so an alternative to negotiating a fixed combination of employer-provided benefits is a flexible benefit plan. Typically, the flexible benefit plan, employees are allowed to choose the benefits they believe will best meet their needs among a designated list and within a price established by the contract. This usually includes medical insurance, vacation, pensions, and life insurance. And so here we talk about some of the advantages of the flexible benefit plans. So they control benefit costs of the employers with flexible benefit plans. 78% reported that a major objective in their initiating a plan was to contain rising healthcare costs. Also, to improve benefits offered, that employers can better meet the needs of their employees by expanding the variety of benefits offered to employees. And so child care is a good example. Employers can pay a portion or all of the cost of providing child care at an off-site facility through a voucher system. In choosing the coverage, employees must either reduce the coverage of another benefit or have the increased cost deducted from their pay. Another reason would be to attract and retain employees. The changing workforce is causing employers in many industries to consider flexible benefits in the tool of the recruitment and retention of employees. And then finally, this idea of avoiding duplicate coverage. Another aspect of this changing labor force is the increased number of working married couples with duplicate benefit coverage from separate employers. Through the use of flexible benefit plans, it may allow a married couple to save thousands of dollars in wasted duplicate coverage. Although many employers have addressed the child care needs of their employees, child care, according to the National Labor Relations Board, is not a mandatory subject for collective bargaining. As the workforce continues to include more single parents and the dual career couples, the direct link between employment and child care might cause the NLRB to reconsider its position. In a survey that was conducted by the U.S. Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor listed the following employer benefits from a child care policy. So from an employer's perspective, it gives greater ability to the employer to keep and attract good employees. It creates less employee absenteeism, a lower job turnover rate, and improved employee morale. And some employers have taken it to also a higher level by providing in-house child care services by establishing a child care center in the workplace. The company must have available space and a sufficient number of interested employees for this service to work. Many times, smaller employers can join together and create a nonprofit center off the premises for all the employees. A number of employers choose to participate in their employees' child care needs by providing financial assistance. And so with the aging of the baby boomers, a relatively new benefit in labor contracts is support for elder care programs. Elder care is defined as assistance for employees who must care for older relatives not able to fully care for themselves. U.S. employees are increasingly challenged with caring for aging relatives. The demand has caused the number of employers offering some form of elder care benefit to increase to almost 25% of all large U.S. organizations. Employers have increased the benefit because it reduces absenteeism and worker stress. And some of these elder care employer-sponsored programs include information services, including legal, retirement, and estate planning, referral services for in-home caregiving programs, geriatric evaluation and counseling, flexible work schedules, part-time work and time-off policies, in-home emergency care, and long-term care insurance for elderly employees and employee spouses. And so one of the oldest and most common employee services is the credit union. Most agreements provide that the employer will initiate a payroll deduction process, but the union assumes responsibility for enrolling members, investing funds, and administering the program. In general, employers wish to stay apart from the process and have the credit union assume complete responsibility. And so let's switch gears here a little bit now. A lot of what we were talking about earlier in this chapter dealt with private sector employees. Let's talk a little bit about public sector employees. So public employers provide many of the same employment benefits offered in the private sector. For most public employers, income maintenance plan include only pension and death and disability plan. Wage guarantee, supplemental employee benefits, guaranteed income stream, and severance pay are not provided to public employees as an acknowledgement that tax dollars cannot be used to pay for non-service. Medical care plans offered are similar to those in the private sector, and public employers and employees face the same problem with escalating costs as do employers in the private sector. Vacations, holidays, sick leave, and paid leave of absences for such reasons as jury duty and military leave are commonly found in public sector agreements. Premium pay provisions are usually found in agreements covering employees in public safety areas such as fire, police, and emergency medical services. One significant area of difference between public and private sector benefits is in the prevalence of defined benefit pension plans. Historically, public safety employees did not participate in the Social Security system. Therefore, nearly a third of all public employees relied solely on their pensions for retirement income. To match the retirement of an employee from the private sector who receives an average 59% of final salary from a combination of benefits from a defined contribution pension plan and Social Security, the public employee receives 60% of final compensation from a defined benefit pension plan. In addition, many public pension plans provide health care benefits to retirees until they qualify for Medicare. And so this concludes our discussion on in Chapter 8 of Employee Benefits. It's an interesting chapter, and it offers, a lot of information and a lot to consider in the negotiation of the collective bargaining agreement. But it's a very important chapter because these benefits are evolving and changing as the workforce evolves and changes. So I encourage you to go back and read the chapter and make sure you're comfortable with it, and then move on to your discussion questions and exercises. And thanks very much.